Next, we'll create the actual penguin himself. We begin by creating the penguin's foot. We start off with a series of 2D cross sections that sort of approximate the shape. We have some circles and ellipses, and using any of the drawing tools, and then using the lofting tool. What we can do is loft a surface through all of these cross sections. And also notice that we can actually branch the lofting into multiple directions. So for the toes, we'll actually have it branch in 3 different directions, and we end up with the one single lofted object for the foot that looks like this. Now for the body of the penguin, what we'll do is start off by creating a series of profile lines that sort of approximate the shape of the body. I can create 3, 4, 5, as many different profile lines as I need. There's a front view and a side view, and that sort of approximates the shape. And then I'll just simply grab those wires there and have formz automatically create the cross sections for me. And since I have those cross sections, I can now loft through those to create the body that looks like this. Now, of course, this is a NURBS object, so it has a set of controls that I can use to further edit that object. I can use the Reconstruct tool to increase or decrease the number of controls on there. So you see the geometry stays the same shape. I can add more controls, not only globally across the entire object, but I can also locally add controls just where I need them. So let's go ahead and add some more detail to the body, maybe create the legs. With that, I'll just simply grab some of these controls at the bottom here and stretch those down. There's one leg, and pull those down to create the other leg. Now for the tail, what I'll do is once again just start pushing and pulling on these controls to shape the detail on there. So to sort of pull those back to create the tail for the penguin. And maybe in the top view, what I'll do is sort of stretch that, flare that tail out a little bit, make it a little wider towards the back. And I think here you get the idea of how you can start off with that basic shape and then just sort of sculpt it into more information. All right, at this point, the penguin doesn't have a head, so let's go ahead and create one for him. We'll just simply, once again, create a series of profile lines. Just grab those lines and using the NURBS by cross-section tool, it would automatically create the cross-sections and loft through it for us. Now we have 2 different objects here. We can use the attaching and blending tools to blend the pieces together to make it one single object. Now at this point, we have the body of the penguin done. We need some wings for the side. We can create the wings flat, then try and bend them into shape to match the torso if we want. Or in this case, what we're going to do is use the NURBS on curves tool, which allows us to project a curve right on the NURBS object. And you can see as I'm drawing the spline curve, it's actually projected right on the surface. So now we have an object which matches the original object exactly. We can reconstruct that to minimize the controls, so that instead of the controls representing the original object, well, we can minimize those so the controls are located just near the actual geometry itself. Now this is a paper-thin surface. If we want, we can use the parallel tool, give it the offset thickness that we want. Now it's a solid object of uniform thickness. All sorts of rounding tools to specify the radius that you want. Click on the edge and we have a nice little rounded or smooth edge for the wing. And notice that the geometry does match the original object that it was derived from exactly. So we can create some nice smooth organic shapes which match other objects. So now that we have the geometry done, we'll do a render zone rendering and we'll put some black feathers on them. What we'll do is create a server style image map that has the look of black feathers, and using the color tool we assign that to the object. That gives us the base color, and if we want to modify the shape and size we can use the texture mapping tool, and there we can give it the mapping type that we want, flat, cubic, cylindrical, and give it the size, and we can scale it up and down on the object. To add additional server styles we can use the Decal Tool, which is like applying decal stickers to the object. So we can take maybe a server style that looks like white feathers. We can also take a transparency map and use alpha channel masking to sort of clip out part of the image, use just part of it and map it onto the object. Once again, we have our mapping type and size. with how it's placed and positioned on the object, and that's mapped on top of the existing texture that's already there. You can apply up to 32 different decals onto the same object. So for example, we have some other surface styles applied. For example, the eye, you can see we just sort of mapped it onto the top of the head here, and you can see you can move it anywhere that you want, rotate it around, just give it the size you need, and it'll be placed on top of the other surface styles that are already assigned on that object. Now we can take all these different surface styles that we have, and using the Render Texture tool, we can actually bake all those down to one single surface style that has one single image map. This not only simplifies the surface style, but it also UV maps that texture, bakes it right onto the surface. So if we were to modify that geometry or animate it, you can see that that one surface style is now fused right onto the surface of that geometry, so it moves with it.